I'm joined yet again by my colleague, Rhett Matthew, the host of the Cannon Fire podcast. And Rhett, we have a very interesting topic I want to talk about today. It is about Devin White. And man, oh man, Devin White has been a little bit of a diversive player this season so far. He started off pretty darn good, right? He had 2.5 sacks to start off the year, got NFC Defensive Player of the Month, Rhett, and then just, it started to spiral out of control very, very quickly. Not just in terms of on the field play as well, but certainly what fan and even to some certain degree what media perspective has been on Devin White. So, can you just kind of catch us up to this point as to what the heck has been going on so far with Devin White?
Yeah, so when we look at Devin White in 2022, you had just mentioned it starts the first 4 games of the year playing probably the best he has his entire career. It looked like over the first few weeks of the season, his pass coverage had gotten a little bit better. I mean, he's tackling guys left and right. He was an animal out there. And since the Bucs have resorted back to their losing ways, unfortunately, people have been critical of Devin White. He's put out some bad tape. There's no way to defend that. You know what I mean? Some of the loafing plays he had against Baltimore, simply unacceptable. And honestly, we talk a lot on the Cannon Fire podcast about Tampa Bay so far this season. And this doesn't just go for Devin White, but I think it applies mostly to him. I think the Bucs are just kind of victims of their own success this year, at least coming into this season, because you get Tom Brady back out of retirement, and immediately you think back to the 2 seasons you've had already, where one of them results in a Super Bowl championship, the other one results in a franchise high number of games won in a season. So it's easy to just assume everything's going to be good and dandy. And on top of that, every journalist in the country is putting out an article as to why the Bucs are the team to beat this year, or first take over on ESPN or whatever is on. The Bucs are dominating the news cycle, and 9 times out of 10, people are talking about how good they thought they were going to be this year with Tom Brady at their quarterback and with this young nucleus on defense, including Devin White. So I hate to say it, but he does have an ego, and to be honest, most football players do. I think that's part of the game. I think it is a human aspect that a lot of people don't always understand, but Devin White has an ego. And I think at a certain point, he became a victim of his own success because I mean this in the most respectable way possible, but Devin doesn't strike me as a guy who always thinks about the implications of his words before he says them. So, in a post-game press conference after almost losing to the Falcons, he says, well, we kind of got bored out there, and we got to remember that we can impose our will for all 4 quarters. So when you're dominating a team, sometimes you get bored out there and you got to play for all 4 quarters. And like some people took it some way, some people took it another way, but it wasn't something he should have said. And ever since that quote, seems like the weeks have gone by. Devin White has played worse. This defense has looked worse. The Bucs have lost more games. They are now 3-5, looking down the barrel of 3-6 if they cannot figure it out against the Rams this Sunday. Devin White on the defensive side of the ball has been a major part of that. He is aside from Levante David, he is their middle linebacker. He is their quarterback of the defense, right?
He's team captain.
So, yeah, he is a team captain. So he has just as much of the blame as the rest of the team does. And, he's one of those guys where when he plays well, he has the most to say. But when he hasn't been playing well and people have been publicly critical of him, he doesn't have a whole lot to say. And I think another bad look for him this week was declining the chance to talk to the media in a post-practice locker room setting. It's just not a great look. A lot of people drew comparisons, talking about the captain's patch on his chest. People say, oh, Derek Brooks would have never done that. And the fact of the matter is Derek Brooks and Devin White are not the same kind of player at the end of the day, but it is one of those things where when you look at a guy with a captain's patch on his chest and you look at a guy who has said he wants to be paid $100 million, and this time last year, people were calling him the best linebacker in the NFL. So he has an ego. He wants to get paid. But at the end of the day, I'll wrap up my long-winded take with this. I personally doubt Devin White's ability to be a leader on this Bucs football team, a leader by example. And, a leader vocally, because when you're not playing well, you can't just not talk to the media. You know what I mean? Like you can't just hide and pretend that it's not happening.
Well, to add a point to that too, yeah, I believe Devin White did speak to the media the day after, I believe the
He
following
did.
day.
Yeah, he
Um,
did.
but even that, it's such a tricky situation, right? This is such a double-edged sword type of situation because on one hand, it is good whenever players exhibit confidence, right? And are talkative in some ways, right? I think that that is a positive thing in some ways. But like what you said, whenever a team's winning, people love it. Whenever a team's losing, people don't like it at all. And it can really
Yeah.
alienate a player in certain situations. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. It's not something that we haven't seen before. We've seen that with plenty of players in the past. Guys who show a lot of confidence whenever they're winning, are often the guys who get criticized a lot whenever the team's losing. And that's what we're seeing here. And that's a tough situation to handle as a player. And we've seen Devin White handle it in a lot of different ways now, some good, some not so good. And it's definitely been an interesting thing. Like you said, just regarding Devin White's play, it has not been the best throughout the, remainder of the season. After the first couple of weeks, things really started to tailspin out of control. And that's led to a lot of criticism, and Devin White's had to defend himself in a lot of situations, which has been pretty darn interesting to pay attention to. I mean, even with interactions with media on social media on Twitter, with different types of media members and whatnot. I've seen Devin White kind of have some conversations there, which has been a really interesting thing to pay attention to. And that's why I say it's a double-edged sword there, because there's some good that comes with the player having that much confidence, but there's also some bad, and it all depends on whether the team is winning or losing. And it's been definitely interesting right now because whenever you don't have the play to back up that confidence and back up that talk, that's when things can really start to spiral out of control, kind of like what we've been seeing.
And I hate to say it, but unfortunately, it is the day and age that we live in. We draw comparisons to former players, like, oh, Derek Brooks would have never acted that way, kind of thing. But let's also not forget that social media, I'm not saying it's a part of the game, because if you're an NFL player, you do not have to be on social media. But more often than not, you are. You know what I mean? And it's become one of those things where it does get a little harder to escape criticism. Guys before could just kind of turn their stuff off and log out for a little while. And if you are a younger guy who is checking his phone, who is active on social media, like Devin tends to be, every now and again, listen, I know I've gotten emotional on Twitter and said things I probably shouldn't have said, and in hindsight, I go back and I delete my stuff. But when you're a professional athlete and the microscope is on you even more than just the average, Joe Blow with a podcast over here, it's one of those things where it's easy for people to get very, very critical of stuff like that. And I think for Devin, he just has to be a little more mindful in the long run of what people are going to think about that stuff, because I would say over the last year or so, the Devin White heel turn with this fan base has been interesting, because there's a lot of Devin White fans still, but he has become a much more divisive player. And I hinted at it before, but he does have a contract coming up the Bucs are going to have to figure out here within the next couple of years. So we'll see if that gets figured out sooner rather than later. Maybe his play can improve and he can earn that contract, but it's just it's the state of the game these days. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to think about stuff that you didn't always have to think about. Could you imagine like a Terrell Owens 20 years ago with a Twitter account? Like, that would have been
That would
a
have
lot
been
of fun.
insane. But you talked about it, the diversity, or the divisiveness, I guess, rather, people love him or hate him, whatever it may be. And I choose to say, hey, Devin White can turn this around. He can still be a good player. And I still believe that, But like you said, there are people who have totally flipped the script on what they think about Devin White. Don't re-sign him, whatever it may be. I've even seen some respectable people in the media have those thoughts and opinions, right? But at the end of the day, the coaching staff has had support for Devin White. Tom Brady came out and has been supporting Devin White. So, you know, uh, the title of this video is going to be something like, "Is Devin White a problem for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?" And in it's completely subjective at this point. In the eyes of the fan base, in the eyes of certain media circles as well, the answer would be probably, maybe yes. But in the eyes of the Bucs, right now the answer is no. So I don't really think that we're going to be seeing a ton of where you have a point here to make.
Well, I was just gonna kind of throw my last take out there as well, something to consider alongside everything else you have said. Winning does cure all.
Right.
And I think for Devin White, not only does his play have to improve for him to win a lot of people back over, but he has to find consistency. And at the end of the day, if he's as consistent as he can be and he's putting in an effort out there and the Bucs are still losing games, I think unfortunately there's going to be a lot more criticism coming his way, whether it's deserved or not. But if he can be better, and if this Bucs team can at some point turn this around, I don't think this is going to be a talking point if eventually we're talking about the Bucs playing in the postseason. So
Yeah.
winning does cure all, and right now I think that's going to be the answer to a lot of potential problems for Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. So, what do you guys think? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below about Devin White and all the goings on with Devin White throughout this season. It's been an absolute roller coaster. So, let us know your thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear them. Go subscribe to Rhett's YouTube channel at the Cannon Fire Podcast. They just passed 4,000 subscribers on there. So, again, congratulations to them. Go subscribe to them if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. We will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.